Hello, wonderful. This is Sarah, and I'm here with Stacy Hoch, and she is an energetic psychologist and practices energetic psychology, right? She's an author and healer through energy work, right? And you told me so many things about you. It's like, I'm going to have you introduce yourself, right?
Okay, well, let me just clarify. So I am not a psychologist. I'm a classically trained psychotherapist.
Thank you. Yes.
Psychology. I am a psychotherapist turned somatic embodiment coach who specializes in working with codependent empaths. I'm an author. I have some e-courses out there, but first and foremost, I'm a mom of four. So that's my primary position in life is to give that which I did not receive. And so right now my primary focus is in parenting and helping people who have been raised by cluster B personalities parent then, because we come with a different blueprint than the normal person. So my work, I think, is about to shift into helping adult children of narcissists parent their children.
So I think that'll be really important work as we move forward, right? Because even the term narcissist is very new within the confines of society and the way we're using it now, right?
Yeah. And everybody throws it around like it's like everybody.
I know. It's one of my pet peeves.
And literally everybody is a narcissist. Congratulations. Call yourself what you are. Let's get down to it. Like you might have, whatever.
Yeah. So to clarify, if I may, because in my own work, I use the term toxic personalities very specifically rather than narcissism because it's effect on you, right? Were you being manipulated? Were you being controlled? Were you being made to feel small? Were you being made to trust someone else other than yourself? Right? Is that how you would align, or when you talk about that?
And this is why I stepped out of psychotherapy as it is. I don't love the labels. I know my energy, we can move matter. I know that the blueprint for a lot of codependence is polarizing. And I know that we can get centered and shift that family system dynamic because I deeply believe that, and I'm specifically working with people who are raised by them, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't work a lot with people who meet them later in life and are dizzied by them, right? Because those people actually had a self to go back to.
Okay.
My demographic was systematically eroded of a sense of self before we even had one. Right. So there's some people who I've worked with who are like, no, literally, I don't have any mommy and daddy issues. I just met this dude and he's nuts. And I can laugh about it because I'm like, oh my God, I know this guy like the back of my hand. It's hysterical. They're all the same. Right. But people from those people had a self that they know, like when the healing process ends, they know who they're going back to. Yeah. My people have to kind of, erase all of the projections and come out. Like there's a sexuality coming out, but there's like an empathic coming out, or there's a self-work coming out that we have to come closer to our truer, like extended our edges instead of always hiding inside of ourselves. There's a coming out process to that. So I work with people to like come on out of that and kind of slowly explore the world again without the shame associated with like initiation and I can't believe you're doing that and that's not true and what you're thinking and feeling is not accurate. So they're kind of children learning how to walk in a new field where they're going, oh, I'm allowed to learn how to walk on my own and not need you to puppeteer me as I do so, right? So
many things I want to bring out from what you just said. Yeah. So having a toxic parent is like having a puppeteer, right? Or having someone pull your puppet strings and this is what I'm supposed to do and this is what I'm supposed to do, right? Which not only erodes the baby steps that it takes to turn into us, right? The little bumps in the road and growth we have to figure out to become us. It also has huge impacts on how we then parent. Is that what I'm hearing?
For sure. I mean,
yeah.
You can want to be the best parent. And this was me. Like I thought I was the best parent because I was polarizing to the other side of narcissism. And that made me
let's say what that looks like. Cause I see that like a lot.
So this is what I believe. This is my personal stance and it's not for everybody. And people who don't get it, don't have to get it because they never had to, which is a blessing. So if it's for you, awesome. If it's not for you, awesome. I personally believe that my veil of my persona that I ended up becoming was, if you look at family systems therapy, we have these ideas that say the average temperature of the family system is 68 degrees. If the scapegoat is normally resting at a 64 and the mom is always at a 72, like she's warmer, the scapegoat's cold. If all of a sudden the scapegoat changes and heats up to a 72, the natural inclination of the system is the mother would then default to the 64 to balance things out, right? Like we don't like change even when it's asked for. And I believe that this is what happens in our inner parts. And if you are raised, especially if you're an empath, you are raised with the opportunity to either be a codependent or to be a narcissist, to connect, right? Because you have to butt heads to make that connection. And I wasn't defaulting to the side of narcissism. I was defaulting to the side of codependency. And that left me so far out of center of myself, right? Because I was always overgiving. I never felt comfortable. I was never coming out. I was afraid to ask. I didn't feel like I deserved. I was waiting for the punishment when I got what I actually wanted. And I didn't believe I deserved it unless somebody gave it to me. But normally that came with a cost, right? So I believe that if you are an empath raised by a narcissist and your default tendency is to align the system, right? Because it's a natural survival psychic technique where you're going, okay, I have to balance out this system. She's all the way cold over there. I have to get all the way hot over here just to keep it normal for her, right? Normal for myself, normal for her. And then that lives on in us when we're adults. And then I could complain my whole life and say that my mother is borderline narcissistic. I could complain and say she's a cluster B and this really had an effect on me. But the truth is that when I came to center, she also came to center. So I moved matter with my truth, right? And I believe that people can do that. So I think that there's this psychic tendency to polarize for people who are empaths raised with narcissists. And that polarization keeps us inauthentic. And it is that coming to center where we actually have to go, I'm not a narcissist in the world, but the truth is my mom's voice yells at me every day and she's a narcissist. She lives in me. I had to claim the inner narcissist. I had to literally engulf her and go, yes, she's here. Fuck. That I have a narcissist that lives inside me. That's true. That's really true. Just because I don't harm other people with that tendency doesn't mean I'm not self-harming constantly with that tendency. And it's looking right at me, right? It's always like, what do you think you're doing? You're not like, and so we carry those voices later in life. And then when we're parents, the tendency will be to overcompensate. We don't want our children to ever experience shame. We don't want them to experience anything that we want to save them because we weren't saved. And that's also so dangerous because it makes people needy. And then our kids do things that they expect us to, they then also don't know how to walk on their own 2 feet and be an actual person and be centered in themselves. So it's really important for codependent parents to get that your overcompensation is actually as harmful as narcissism.
Ooh. 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 Okay, so recap what you just said. So it's like a seesaw, right?
I see it.
Yes, yeah, I could see that in you. Yeah, so you have like the narcissist parent, and then maybe they're always up because what their needs are important, and so codependent parent seesaw is always down. Okay, is that
sure?
Okay, then when you become a mother, you're used to always being down, and so your kids' needs and everything is always up. And from my experience, kids can then either turn into power controlling and selfish. We won't use the term labeled narcissism. They'll become very selfish because they're used to always getting their way, or they learn this is what a good human is, and they're also codependent.
Well, I'm stuck right now. My mind is glitching because I'm going, she's using the word selfish. She's using the word selfish.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. That might be a part of it, but I think it's more of a fixed, see, here's the tendency too, is that traditionally, and I have a 5-year-old, so she just is going through this right now. There is a normal stage for narcissism. And if we're not allowed to go through it, we get stuck in it, right? So I don't care. There's plenty of empaths who are selfish, and that's fine. Be selfish. You're allowed to be you because it's you self-full. As long as you're full inside of yourself, not of yourself, right? If you're full inside of you, go do that. Yeah, I forget where I was going with that though. Yeah.
Well, we were talking because I hate to use the term narcissistic up there. And really what I'm thinking about is the person who's capable of having healthy relationships.
Let's just call it unconscious.
Okay. We'll call it, yes. Okay. So unconscious. And because I want to bring the conversation into how do we find the balance and how to create that balance for our kids, right? So it's not this seesaw, because that person goes on to have incredibly unhealthy relationships throughout their life. And this person has incredibly unhealthy relationships throughout their life if there's no balance found, right?
Yeah. And that's also an exteriorization of the inner relationship that you have with yourself, right? And that's also an externalization of the relationship that we have with our creator. And when you are an empath raised by a narcissist, we believe that our mother is our God, right? That's what's true. When we are born, we believe that creator is what our parents were. And if you had an absent father and you had a narcissistic mother and your needs were never met, you're going to wait for the other shoe to drop. You're going to wait to take the hit when you get something good. You are going to think that God is an absent father that you can't reach, right? And you're left alone with no umbilical cord going, where the fuck are my people? Like, what is this? I'm like literally floating in outer space here.
And how do you become more grounded after that experience and learn to be your own umbilical cord? Because that's exactly the example I use with codependency, right? They have like I talk about something called smart girl syndrome, which is kind of just like earning and trying to find you've never met a problem you couldn't solve. And so you can solve the problem of your toxic relationships too. But true codependency, I use that umbilical cord term too. And it's like, who do I plug into? Who do I plug into? And it's incredibly dangerous to use our children as our energetic plugins.
Yeah, dude. And that's what we will do inevitably, because we never had somebody. And that's what narcissists also do also, right? Like, that's why I see that it's a continuum and it's a flip side of the same coin. And I don't know that this is true. I know that this is true in the blueprint of cognition, right? I don't know if it's true in energy. I don't know if you can be an empath and a narcissist. I don't know but I do know from my own experience that the blueprint, the way I see it, because my energy was not this, but I was so hooked into this, I couldn't get in my feet. Like, when you talk about grounding, it's like, yeah, we're not on the ground. We're literally not on the ground. We're hooked into this transactional like spectrum of a blueprint where it's like, oh, I get my worth. And I know that I'm worthy if I produce. I know that I'm worthy if I've made your day better and made you happy. But I only think about what you think. I'm not thinking about what I think.
You don't even know. That's so disconnected. It's like, the runaway bride, how do you like to take your eggs? I don't know. Yeah. Whatever guy I'm with.
Who's going to tell me? Someone tell me. You tell me.
Right. Yeah. And we don't realize, if we're in that stage, that we're advocating responsibility for our own lives.
If we're in what stage?
I need someone to tell me who I am. I need someone to tell me who I like, right?
You mean the power of that? You mean the totally. And I love that you're saying that, because I see a lot of people where I'm like, dude, you're consciously making the choice of who you're staying in control of who you let control you. I wrote about this last night. This is like a part of my second book. Like, we seek control. And then when we get control, we seek who we're going to let control us, even if we're paying their bills. Yeah. Right? Like, even if we look like the submissive one, we're secretly going, oh my God, this is my savior, and I'm going to let this person control me because I waited my whole life for somebody to trust. And this is where the flip side also of narcissism and codependency is. It's like, one's waited their whole life to like have somebody tell them what to do because they want to trust so bad, and the other one has wanted so bad to have somebody to tell what to do because they just want, right? Like, it's the flip side of the same thing. And I see that narcissism, we use grandiosity to experience, to avoid shame. And then in codependency, we use shame to avoid grandiosity, right? And it's this calming the center of both of those. Like, I see it like not as a seesaw necessarily, but if there's an arrow and there's like a heating up, like little arrow in the center, it's like, when we come to center, then we can be both vertical and horizontal in our lives. And that's when we're authentic. Because when we're only horizontal and we're operating from this space and we can't even feel our own feet, we can't be vertical in the world. We can't come out. We don't have any third chakra. You're talking about like this, will and initiation. And the umbilical cord, we don't have any coming out because we're not down here if we're not vertical. So we got to get vertical, which is get centered off of the paradigm. The paradigm still lives in me, but I don't live in it. That's a huge difference. So I think it's about really like the coming to center is getting vertical so you can actually move out in the world instead of just be stuck in this one.
And what are some practices in your own life? Is it third chakra work? What do you to become grounded and to find that sense of self? What are some strategies that you've used in your own life and used with clients that have been effective?
Well, first of all, I'm going to go with, this is like kind of annoying probably to people, but one of the things that is really true for me and my body, besides obviously walking outside barefoot, is eating plants, right? Eating plants. Like I was so toxic, and it's so easy to stay so toxic when you're like just, eating plants is huge for me. Eating like red root vegetables. It's so funny because I don't actually anymore. It's like, I don't have ritualistic practices. Like I'm in here, and it took me a long time to get here. But I would say, you know, the first time I went to a shaman, she said, I want you to, and I had a tailbone injury, so this might be a little bit different, but she said, I want you to envision like a chain wrapped around your tailbone holding you to the earth. And I was like, I am getting the fuck out of here. This is exactly why I did. Like, I don't want to be chained to this earth. I'm coming to you to get spiritual, right? I'm coming to you to get out off of this thing that like I'm on. And the idea of grounding literally enraged me. And I was not an angry person, right? And that's another thing that we have to get in touch with our anger, because it's actually there. And when we negate it and we go, oh no, he's always angry and I don't touch anger. It's like, if you don't have that fire, you don't remember your own will, right? So grounding is interesting because a lot of times what I see we do too, and I might be going off like way off here, but is we revert from like second chakra to like, we go from this idea of like victimhood to compassion. Like we skip over all of the parts that
humanity, we skip over. Yes. Yeah.
The parts that show us the paradox, we skip over that. And we just do this loop where it's like, I'm a victim, or I'm so compassionate for my perpetrator that like, I can't even get in the center of that. Right.
Yeah.
So
did you say spiritually bypassing, or am I just hearing that in my head?
You heard it in your head. I think.
Okay.
I don't decide it.
Okay. Spiritually bypassing is what she's talking about. Like, oh, I can totally forgive them. Oh no, I'm just a good person. I'm not gonna let it bother me, right? And it's like, whoa, it should bother you. You know, I hate to use the word should, but you know, it's like that's normal. When we touch our hand to the oven and burn, and we pull our hand off, that's like danger signals. And that can be really scary because you're bypassing the danger signals that let you know there's someone can hurt you.
Yeah. But when you're used to being hurt, my demographic is very used to being hurt, right? So it's not comfortable. I actually work with people who are codependents and this is the trouble with later in life relationships, they steer to the side of codependency. And if they meet a normal person, ideally that person will be so solid in themselves, they stay where they are. But if they meet a not normal person, they could create a narcissist in their relationship, because that's the only relationship that they know. Right. So I work with people who meet moderately healthy people, and they're just trying to sustain a sense of, okay, I'm allowed to be where it's not hurtful. Like, wait, he's not hurting me and she's not taking something from me. And well, who am I? What's my role? If I'm not the punching bag and I'm not giving you something all the time, why do you love me? And then I have to sit with that in myself. Like, I don't love me. I was systematically taught to not love the essence that is me and only the image. And if the image wasn't perfect, then the essence didn't matter. So I work with people who are actually meet moderately healthy people, and they go, how do I sustain a normal relationship after watching what I watched and being who I was? And I work with so many people who are afraid to get into the relationships because they go, I'm immediately going to lose myself. Right. And then when you ask about the grounding thing, it's interesting because like, I've worked for years to get to this place, but I don't ever think about, I have to ground, unless I'm like really like needing to ground. But like, I'm just me now. And I think that's the ultimate point of the work.
Well, when I started it, I remember meditating with like rocks on me, and they were just like little like healing stones. They weren't like before anyone, rocks on me, but that was a big point. And I would put like a rock on my third chakra when I was meditating, and it like, okay, here I am.
Yeah.
I'm settled. And that was I did that a lot, and it was pretty effective.
Well, I think too, you're touching on something here, which on a chakra level. So I also I'm certified in chakra psychology, and on a chakra level, a lot of people work with a current that like, they just go up and they're like, okay, I'm coming from the ground up and I can talk to spirit and blah, 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 blah. Like, but I'm like grounded. We have to kind of work chakra by chakra, because that was my point. It wasn't even a spiritual bypass point. It was this point of like, if we're not tapping in and coming down like literally consciously and systematically. And we just go, I want to ground. We're not getting in here. Right. And then we're like, no, that's not comfortable for me. It feels just as empty as being up here. So it's a lot of us talk about grounding, which is great and very necessary. But I think it's also starting from the head, working its way down instead of starting from the ground and working its way up for people, I guess, because that's scary. Getting our feet on the ground was like, that's exactly what we didn't want to do, right?
No, I didn't want to do that. No, that's not fun.
We have to like take care of ourselves, you know.
It's like, no, it's like, that's just not good enough. No, and in my own life, that's something that really helped me. And I would just had rocks for like 2 years. I think I carried around these little like healing stones, and I went to like a healing place, and they gave me the right stone for me. And then, and I don't even know where those are, but I'm not at a stage.
I've been like holding it.
Yes. Well, and I would have to go in situations where I would be around toxic people, and I would have 2 of the stones in my hand, and I would kind of like rotate them through so you can see, like, to give me something to kind of hold on to. Even when I was driving there, I would kind of rotate it in my hand, and which, you know, it really did help. It really did help.
Here's the thing about that too, is like, even if it's placebo, like I believe in the beauty and the miracle work of crystals, but even if it's placebo, that opportunity gave you an opportunity to unhook.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's, even if that's all it was, it's like, okay, I have my rocks. I'm not hooking into you. I got my rocks.
Yeah. No. So I don't want to skip over like how to co-parent or how to parent after that, not co-parent, but how to parent after that situation with, finding the right temperature. Like how do you parent in the right temperature to raise fabulous kids, and try to break that cycle in your own life?
Oh my God. First of all, I mean, that's $1 million question, right? But I intend to launch a parenting course for this year, but we're taught so many things that we have to relearn. I want to teach people, and this is dangerous also, but like, I want to teach people who didn't have mothers how to be humans. And we didn't learn we're allowed to ask. We learned that you should be grateful. Don't ask for anything, right? And we will subconsciously do that to our kids. And I have a 15-year-old daughter who now is coming of age. And my mother used to just shame me and ridicule me if like she saw any body parts. And that tendency is there. Oh, she's like sexually mature. What do I do now? And I think that we have to really get in our own work, like, right? I don't think it's about being a parent. I think it's about being a person. And codependency is a paradigm. It's not a relationship. It's about learning how to be you, and then you'll know how to parent. But most people are like, how do I parent? And when you do your own work, I'm a founding member of an environmental charter school, and I taught there for a while, and I literally could not walk by the first grade classrooms. And I never thought anything of it until one day I was like, holy shit, this is because every time I walk by first grade, I'm having my own first grade experience. And if we don't, and then I wanted to save my own kids from first grade. Right? Like I was like, oh, yeah.
Save them for first grade. Yeah. I love it.
Catch those things.
Yes.
We project those things. And then
and unconsciously. Yeah.
Yes. And then we're projecting weakness and insecurity, and we're doing the best we can. We're like, no, I love you. You're great. You can do anything. Oh my God, don't walk by the first grade classroom. Those kids are going to eat you alive. You can do it. You can do it. But your mind is going, no, oh my God, they're like in danger. And your energy field is going like, I'm having a trauma, telling them to walk into the experience. And they feel me having the trauma, and they're resistant because they're like, wait. So it's not about how to be a parent, it's about how to be a person. And it's about really diving in your own work and relearning the things that we were taught, which were like, you know, I'm a like big, I do not like cry it out things, right? Like it's a huge trigger for me. I don't like when people let their kids cry it out. And a lot of us were raised with the idea you're spoiling that kid. And again, if we don't let our kids have everything that they need when they actually are in a position to have somebody give it to them, like they need that. We are the only mammal that has the longest period of like dependency, right? Our kids need to be dependent at a time that and healthy individuation is a big thing too. Like people might say that this is insane, but I am nursing both of my kids. My 5-year-old sometimes nurses. And you know, people could talk about emotional incest in such a way, but that's not the situation here, because her father and I are very, very happy, but her individuating on her terms is very important for her, not for me. I don't like when she comes up to me and she's like, I want to, you know, can I have that? I'm like, okay, like that's fine. But it's more important for me to know that she knows in herself, okay, now's my time to move on from that phase. Right. And my 2-year-old's going to do it faster than her because, you know, he was born, so the milk is there. So she's like, let me have it. But there will come a time where she naturally goes, yeah, that's not for me anymore. And when that time comes, she's going to be more whole instead of more half because I pushed her out of the nest before she was ready. Right. So healthy individuation is a big thing too. And I think I have a lot of parents go, my mom says that I'm co-sleeping and it's like crazy. And, you know, I'm really tired. Is this really worth it? It's like, yes, yes, yes. Right. Like, yes, you're crazy. Yes, it's worth it. Yes, you're going to be tired and the kid needs you now. And then it won't be trying to suck on your tit when it's 30. Right. Like if you do that work when they're young, they're not going to need it when they're older. And then there also is a time where you have to healthfully be like, okay, I'm not, you know, my son was like 12 years old. He ended up calling me at 10 o'clock in the middle of the night and in the rain on a bike telling me he went to the city. He wasn't supposed to go there. My inclination was to pick up the car keys, shame the shit out of him and go pick him up. And I was like, get your ass home right now. He drove on a very dangerous street. He got his ass there. So he got his ass home. Right. But my inclination was, oh my God, I got to go pick him up. I can't believe he did this. I'm going to just shame him and scream at him the whole way home. And then I just waited and we never spoke about it. Right. He learned his lesson. He got the fullness of the experience, not the half of it. I didn't come save him from the half of it. And those are the things that raised as a codependent, we kind of overcompensate in ways that are equally as destructive as the ways that we were raised. So,
and I love what you said about being a person, not a parent, because I see so many, if it was like, oh, a parenting course, it's like, oh yes. Okay. Parenting course. Oh, yep. Yep. I'm going to do it. And it's like, okay, personal course so you can be a good parent. How can I focus on my children and not look at myself again? Right. And the biggest pet peeve I have a really hard time when people say, I'll say, you know, are you worried about your daughter following in your footsteps or in your patterns? And she's like, oh, my daughter's stronger than me. And it's like, God, you're asking your child to do the work that you're not willing to do. And you've disassociated from that enough.
Yeah, but that's a big thing too. And there's this idea that if I do the work, I'm going to open the floodgates of my hell and I'm actually weak in here. No, you're not. You're not weak in there. Yeah, you're fiery, right? Agreed. It's like when you get in there, you're not weak. When you get in here, you're fiery and you're allowed and you ask and you demand and you say like, I'm crying right now. Who's going to pay attention to me? Right? Yeah. Who's going to pay attention to me because I'm not giving up until you do. Right. Yeah. So yeah, when you're all in there, it's a different story. It's a different creation.
Yeah. Well, in my language, you know, I'll say, people say, you've been told what's wrong with you. Let's start with what's right with you. And that's the whole beginning of my journey with my ladies and with myself, right? Is let's strength-based healing. Let's figure out what's right with you and build a life on your strengths rather than, well, and this is what's wrong with me, and this is what's wrong with me, and this is what's wrong with me, right? And it's different, right? It sounds like you're aligned with that. That's awesome. Stacy, tell people where they can find more about you, more about what you do. You said second book. What's your first book? Tell people about that.
My first book is a memoir. It's called Imperfectly Sane. And actually, I did not, I wrote that book. My parents said that they would sue me and disown me, and I did a Kickstarter account for it, and I paid an editor to edit the book. I got to a point where I was like, I am just done. Like, I am publishing this. I don't care what they say. It's worth the risk to me. My soul is saying like, yes, even though my ego didn't really know what it was for. And my mother read that book and supported my Kickstarter campaign, which if you read the book, the fall to my knees when I saw her name show up on that list was the milestone moment. It's like, and this is a piece of it that I wrote yesterday. It's like, when you see a parent come awake who's been asleep, it's like watching your baby take his first step. It's like, it might not be milestones for the world, but it's milestones for you because you know it changes everything. Mm-hmm. And that book was a testament of that change. And it also solidified it in physical matter, which has been amazing. But that is the journey of, and my point in saying that I paid the editor is she didn't edit it. And I didn't really know what the book was about until I was supposed to hand it in, and I realized she didn't edit it. And I went through that night and I read it and I edited it myself, retrospectively, pretty shittily. And I realized, oh my God, I went through all of grad school. I went through all of coaching. I've done all of this work. I didn't realize because I didn't want to call it what it was, that I was raised by a borderline narcissistic human being, right? And my work is actually in epigenetics. So,
ooh, that's fascinating. Yes.
And that is like the premise of the entire book, because it didn't start with my mother, right? And it might not end with me, right? I don't know, but I know that it didn't start with my mother. And I know that for me to be who I am in the world, I have to end that in me. And I know that when I ended it in me, it did something down the number line in genetics for my mother.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
Sane. It's called Imperfectly Sane on Amazon. People either love it or they don't. So
that's like anything, right? You're getting this world when you put so much out there, people are like, how are you not scared? It's like, you know, I get like hate emails sometimes and people say horrible things about me. And you're just like, okay. When I really want to reply back, well, when people like, you know, because I do toxic relationship recovery, right? And so when people want to email me and say like really hateful things, I would say, man, I cannot imagine why you would ever have been in a toxic relationship. Like, but I don't. I refrain and I'm just send them out the best wishes, right? You know, but it's like, oh, you have so much time to email strangers and say hurtful things. It's not much.
Well, yeah, I look at it like this. I look at it like, if I can deal with my mother, right? Like if, you won't say anything to me that I haven't said to myself or about myself. Your opinion is no longer more important than mine, but thanks for the fucking email. Like,
I didn't have a good day.
Thank you.
That's hilarious. Stacy, thank you so much for coming on here and sharing your story and your successes and, you know, strategies for helping us become toxic person proof.
Yeah. Thanks, Sarah.